There's a certain silence that follows many people into adulthood. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of something missing, something you can't quite name. It appears when you sit with people yet feel emotionally distant, when you succeed and feel nothing, or fail and feel everything. This silence is often the echo of a childhood you never fully lived. Childhood isn't something you grow out of. It doesn't vanish when you turn 18. It stays with you, tucked inside your reactions, your fears, your habits, your relationships, and the voice you use to speak to yourself. Your lost childhood becomes the quiet blueprint of your adult pain. When you were young, you didn't just learn words or numbers. You learned how to survive. You learned which parts of yourself were safe to show, and which parts needed to disappear. You learned what kind of love was allowed, what kind of emotions were tolerated, and how much of your true self the world would accept. Some children became overly responsible, caring for everyone else just to feel worthy. Some became invisible because being unseen felt safer than being misunderstood. Some became the entertainer, making everyone laugh, because it kept the peace. Some became perfectionists, believing love had to be earned. None of these roles were accidents. They were survival strategies, and survival always demands a price. Usually the price is your authenticity. Those parts of you that weren't welcomed didn't disappear. They hid deep inside, waiting for the moment you'd finally come back for them. This is why so many adults feel anxious, numb, disconnected, or undeserving of rest, even when their lives look fine from the outside. Because the mind doesn't measure fulfillment by success. It measures it by wholeness. When you lose touch with the child you once were, you don't just lose innocence. You lose wonder. You lose the ability to rest without guilt, to dream without fear, to forgive yourself without conditions. You start living for performance, achieving more, working harder, constantly proving that you're enough, yet the ache inside never leaves. Psychologists have shown that the emotional environment you grow up in literally shapes your nervous system. If you were raised in a place where affection was inconsistent, where emotions were ignored or mocked, your brain learned to expect rejection and prepare for danger. That adaptation helped you survive childhood, but quietly damages adulthood. The patterns that once protected you, overthinking, avoidance, perfectionism, self-sacrifice, slowly become prisons. Unexpressed emotions don't fade. They recycle. They come back in your triggers, your fears, the small moments that hit much harder than they should. A tiny rejection feels unbearable because it awakens every old wound. A small criticism feels overwhelming because it carries the weight of every time you were told you weren't enough. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. Adults who struggle with emptiness aren't broken. They're unfinished. They're trying to complete a story that was interrupted long ago, and many try to fill that missing space with work, relationships, productivity, distractions, anything to avoid sitting with themselves. But you can't outrun emptiness. You have to listen to it. Healing begins when you ask the child inside you, what did you need that you never received? Often it isn't comfort or luxury. It's being seen, being heard, being allowed to cry without shame, being loved without performing, being taught that mistakes didn't make you unworthy. Until you give yourself those things now, you will keep searching for them in others. This is why some people fear abandonment, but push others away first. Why some crave affection, but act distant. Why some achieve everything, yet feel empty inside. The lost childhood doesn't disappear. It simply grows into an adult body. Sometimes you react in ways that feel too big for the situation. Someone's silence hurts more than it should. A small disappointment breaks you. Rest feels like guilt, or peace feels unfamiliar. That isn't immaturity. It's memory. It's your nervous system repeating warnings from a time when you didn't have control, when you stopped running from your past. What you feel first isn't peace, it's grief. You begin to notice the birthdays you don't remember, the times you wanted to speak but stayed quiet, the moments where joy was replaced with responsibility. This grief is not weakness, it's reconnection. Healing doesn't require rewriting your memories. It requires giving them context, understanding that what you once called weakness was actually survival, that the tears you swallowed were acts of courage, that the version of you who endured so much was simply doing what they had to do. There's a beautiful concept called reparenting, learning to give yourself now what you needed then. It means becoming the adult your childhood self always waited for. It means speaking to yourself with kindness, offering yourself patience, letting yourself rest, listening to your emotions instead of silencing them. That's where true healing begins, with permission to feel, to exist, to be human. Safety is not something you find, it's something you build. You build it in your self-talk, your boundaries, your decisions, and the way you stop explaining your pain to people who cannot understand it. You're not a project to be fixed. You're a garden. Some days you bloom, some days you shed. Both are necessary. Both are beautiful. As you reconnect with your inner child, life begins to feel textured again. Music feels deeper, colors feel brighter. Even small moments, sunlight on the floor, a familiar smell, a childhood photo, begin to touch your heart in ways you forgot. This is not nostalgia. This is your soul remembering itself. Most adult struggles are old wounds wearing new masks. Fear of failure is fear of disappointing someone. Fear of rejection is fear of being unloved. Relentless achievement is the hunger for attention you never received. Once you understand these roots, the patterns loosen their grip. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to choose instead of repeat. Eventually, you realize something profound. Your parents were children once too. They carried their own wounds, their own fears, their own missing pieces. They passed down what they knew, even when it wasn't enough. Understanding this doesn't erase the pain, but it frees you from carrying their story as your own. And then one day, you look at an old picture of yourself and feel tears rise, not from sadness, but from recognition. The child you thought you lost was never gone. You just stopped looking. Healing your lost childhood isn't a destination. It's a lifelong conversation, a gentle reunion with yourself. It lives in every small act of self-kindness, in every boundary you set, in every moment you rest without guilt. Slowly, the ache inside you transforms. It stops haunting you and starts guiding you. You stop chasing approval because you finally validate yourself. You stop seeking love in people who don't know how to give it. You begin attracting relationships that feel peaceful. Even solitude becomes softer because you are no longer alone. You're accompanied by your whole self. Healing doesn't turn you back into who you were before the pain. It turns you into someone new, someone wiser, softer, more whole. Someone who understands that sensitivity is not weakness, but a form of truth. You may never reclaim the childhood you lost, but you can build the adulthood that child always deserved. An adulthood filled with gentleness, creativity, rest, and self-respect. You can laugh loudly without apology. You can love without losing yourself. You can exist without earning it. And one day, you'll feel a quiet silence within you, but this time, it won't feel empty. It will feel peaceful. The silence of a war finally ending. The silence of a heart that has stopped running. The silence of someone who has finally come home to themselves.